Hey guys, an announcement. I am currently making plans to change up the show. And don't worry, I'm not going away. I just want to shake things up because I've been doing this podcast the same way for over 2 years and, got to keep things fresh. So, all that to say, I am currently looking for a regular co-host. I've gotten so many great applications so far, a bunch I need to go through. If you've applied, I appreciate your patience. I am going to be reaching out to everyone one at a time. It will happen. If you reached out first, you're going to hear from me first. If you're reaching out just now, it might be a little bit longer. I'm going to reach out to everyone one at a time in the order that they applied. But yeah, I'm still taking applications. I'll be accepting them until May 17th. At the time of this episode published date, that will be in this Friday. So if you love this show and you think you'd be a great fit, apply today. There are only 3 more days to apply. So if you've been debating or you're on the fence about applying, just do it. Why not? What's the worst that can happen? I encourage, if you're thinking about it, I encourage you, send in that application. And yeah, I look forward to talking to everyone who's applied. It's going to be fun. I'm excited. Now, let's talk about the Bloodline Killer.
Death has come to your little town, Sheriff.
Have you ever felt a knife cut through human flesh and scrape the bone beneath?
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Be my victim.
You are all my children now.
Hello, my name is Austin Torres, and welcome to the Would You Die podcast, the show where we talk about our favorite horror monsters and villains. Today, I am joined by the director of the brand new horror thriller, Bloodline Killer. He's also the director of films like Sanctioning Evil, Little Ukraine, and American Frightfest. Please welcome my guest, Ante Novakovic.
Wow. Great job. Thank you for having me, Austin. Thank you for having me. Big time.
I am so excited to have you on. And for everyone listening, before we started recording, Ante, he could vouch for this. I was practicing. I'm so happy I got it right.
Yes, it's a bit of a tongue twister the last name. It gets everyone all the time. So you did a fantastic job right off the bat.
I take podcasting seriously, and that's like if I get off to the wrong step,
Sure.
get off to the wrong foot, then the whole episode is like awkward, and we don't want that.
No, you want to start off on the right foot. Absolutely.
So I'm so excited to talk to you because I myself am much younger, not much young, but like I'm just beginning my filmmaking journey, and to talk to someone who's
Oh,
made
wow.
films, this is the stuff I live for, you know. So I'm so
Oh,
excited
great, man.
to talk to you, but we gotta start from the beginning. When did you first become a horror fan?
Ooh, I'd say I was a little one when I first. I don't know if I don't know if I describe it back then as a horror fan or just scared out of my mind by horror. That evolved into becoming a horror fan as an adult by trying to put the nightmare fuel into perspective, basically, that I endured as a kid. So you kind of watched all those movies, or I did at that time, and was, you got your first impression is you're beyond, like you're outside your body scared, right? Like the kind of stuff I grew up with, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, all those kinds of films that were out at that time. I was like, you couldn't get me to sleep for weeks. But then as I got into my adulthood, trying to go, how did they do that? Kind of thing. It's more, I want to look behind the curtain. You start to realize, okay, when you're a kid, you think it's all real.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, I mean, the boogeyman's real at that age. I mean, there was more than enough boogeymen in the films I was watching to kind of keep me up endlessly. But as you get to be an adult, it's like, they do that? What was that scare about? What's that relationship with the audience? Why do we love being scared? So I think that's where I started to become this horror fan before I became a filmmaker, so much so.
That's awesome. Do you, as because especially because I'm I'm the same way. When I was little, I every scary movie scared me, and even movies that weren't scary movies scared me. I think of movies like the Indiana Jones movies.
Oh
Like
yeah. Oh
they're
yeah.
not horror,
Temple
but
Doom. No, of course.
like
The monkey
exactly
brains.
Temple of Doom.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's all it took. But that's the thing, right? It's just it's that instant you see it, you hear it, it's sound. You're not there, you're not physically in the space, you're not director. It's sound, it's sight, and it kind of has a deep effect. It takes residency inside the brain, is what I tell people all the time. So some of the classic horrors take up so much residency. There's a
yeah.
bunch that I have in the cachet in that regard.
Do you remember the moment where you knew you were going to be a filmmaker?
Yes, I do. I think it started in the theater for me. I started directing plays in the theater with the theater group out of New York City called the Common Basis Theater many moons ago. And I wrote plays for the theater, and I realized I loved the atmosphere of the theater itself. But then I realized, there's a whole other medium out there, which is filmmaking, which is understanding that side of it and getting technically savvy and understanding exactly how to create the performance and edit and put the piece together, which is very different than the theater, but in some ways the same. You're still telling a story using different tools. So I think at that point, once I had started to become a regular in regards to writing plays for the theater, I started to really crave wanting to make films.
That's awesome.
Mm.
I'm not much into the theater world because living in Michigan, there's actually a pretty good theater community here, but I don't imagine it's anything like New York, New York City. But
I mean, look, wherever you do theater, I think it can be magical. You know what I'm saying? I
yeah,
mean, even in New York, as big as it is, it was a black box theater that we were involved with, a small troupe. It wasn't a large group of people involved in it, and it's a gift that kept on giving. You know what I'm saying? So it was a
for sure.
very interesting world that you get to create. So I don't think it really matters where you do it, as long as you find a committed group, you can really make anything happen.
I
It's where the
love that.
imagination gets to live.
I love that so much,
Mm.
that sentiment, because you're absolutely right. And my passion's with filmmaking, but I have a lot of friends in the theater community, and I see how passionate they are, and that inspires me with my own So
Right.
I love that you bring that up. I'm interested though, with your background in theater, I'm sure you're able to use theater tricks for your filmmaking.
Yeah, I mean, look, a lot of the acting that happens with film is more specific to camera and angles and stuff like
Mhm.
that. But the essence of working with talent, I try to create a safe space for talent in order for them to thrive and work. That's a big piece in letting them own the space. So I find a commitment to really ensuring that space for them, to let them have the oxygen, the creative oxygen, in order to create what they need to create and feel safe enough to go for it, and explore. So that hasn't changed, I don't think,
Yeah.
from the time I've been in the theater. The technical aspects create a different environment, sure. But that piece has always been foundational for me, working with talent and letting them find truth in whatever moment or scene they're in and be willing to explore it.
That's I hope there's a lot of other, what's the word I'm looking for, younger filmmakers like myself, are beginning film or aspiring filmmakers who's listening to this, because I think that's very, what's the word I'm looking for? We should hear that, like that's
Yeah, I mean, look, there's no rush in it,
yeah,
right? Like
right.
when you get to a set, and there's no right or wrong, that's a big piece, especially early on. Just go for it, explore it. I always say to people, be willing to fall flat on your face many times. Whether it be in theater, whether it be in making a film or a short film, don't let the fear of not being perfect or not being exactly what you need to be in a given moment stop you from completing the totality of it. Because by completing the totality of it, you'll have gained the lessons and insight, and you'll have learned, and you'll recommit, you'll come back in, and you'll bring that experience with you, and you'll come and you'll go up a rung. You'll learn a little bit more. So just keep moving with it. If you have the passion for it and the commitment to the creativity, you'll find a way. You'll do it. You'll explore it, and you'll take away what's working, and then tweak what's not. But fear should never be a common denominator. Forget about all that. Just go for it.
I love that so much.
Mm.
Talking to you right now, I'm like, man, I gotta write something. I gotta get back on a set right now.
That's the best experience in the world. That's the best way to learn,
Oh
you know?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
You are a big horror fan, and I think it shows because you've made a few horror films.
Mm.
What attracts you as a creative to the horror genre?
I think it works. It can work metaphorically to tell a few different stories. It's not necessarily horror films can kind of on the surface be about one thing, but truly be about something else. A
Yeah.
lot of like films can deal with everything from forbidden love to coming of age to, people going through their awkward phase in their teenage years to being an adult kind of, or, family conflict, revenge. And it could take those very human elements and ethos and kind of shadow side to the human being and take it to an extreme, which is kind of
Yeah.
genre wise, you might not get the ability to do that in every other, in every other
Yeah.
kind of like format. Where in horror, you can go there. Like I don't know, I was watching Pet Cemetery recently, the
Oh
remake.
yes.
I think Patrick Wilson was the lead in it, and it's like, that tells a story of not wanting to let go, overcoming death, right? Not wanting, our loved ones, like guilt, sadness, blame, shame, and not wanting to let go. And once you break that ritual, the demons that come back to haunt you because you broke a cardinal rule, which is you brought the dead back, kind of thing. So you pay the sacrifice in that, but it's like very human, right?
Yeah.
Like who wouldn't want their loved one, right? So it becomes very universal at the same time, and yet it's a horror. So I think horrors have the capacity to really delve deep into the human psyche because the things that make us scared make us all universally scared. That's why they work. It's because
Right.
they tap into something very essential.
I totally agree, especially with the ability to kind of push the cinematic language a bit more than you have the opportunity to with a drama or a period piece.
Yeah.
Horror movie, you can do the strangest things and people love it.
Yeah, yeah, they'll come along for the ride. It's not. I always find like if you ground it in something, like I don't know, Talk to Me as an example of like
Yeah.
um the main heroine, had lost a mother recently. It was kind of shrouded in that. So we got the understanding. You understand why she's reaching out, wanting this connection or exploring, right? You
Right.
kind of get it. Because loss is such a profound thing, and she doesn't know how to deal with it, basically. And so, it grounds it in that world, and you're on the character's side, but it takes us into a very, immediately we're thrown into this kind of like upside down reality where it's like the dead aren't so kind, you know.
Yeah.
They want their pound of flesh in some way, shape, or form. But so you can really, play with a lot of different themes, I think, a lot of different themes in an extreme way, and you can push it. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like, I love Thanksgiving in that
Oh
regard. It
yeah.
takes the holiday to a whole, I mean, it gets to the point of putting someone in basting another person kind of thing, right? Which is so extreme, right? It's just like,
Oh yeah.
it's like, it's like, okay, here you have this horror that like, now all of a sudden watch it. It's like, and yet I think I saw it at the theater and everyone, when we watched it at the theater, everyone was having the same kind of reaction to it. It's like, oh no,
Yeah.
oh my, oh no, like they're gonna yeah, putting the person in the oven kind of thing. But yeah, I think you can really play a very interesting dynamic out in regards to a horror film visually, metaphorically, and through the storyline as well. I think it gives you a little bit more creative license in ways that other genres might not, put it that
Yeah.
way.
Something I really like when I'm watching films is I think horror is it's very versatile. You can tell any story in that genre, but you can match it with other genres as well, like science fiction and horror
Yes.
uh, is is like uh is like an Oreo where it's like you want the
Yeah.
chocolate cookie and then the vanilla filling. It just goes
Mm-hmm.
so good together. Like Alien and The
Mm-hmm.
Thing,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Frankenstein, I think
Mm-hmm.
one of the first horror films and science fiction novels, I should
Yeah.
say.
Right. Yeah, these worlds can meet really nicely. They could dovetail, in a way that works. And it's the examples you bring it up right there, everything. I mean, Terminator, right? It's not
Yeah.
necessarily a horror film, but it kind of is a horror film in a way. It's
I'd be
not,
scared.
it's not,
I'd be scared shitless if a Terminator would come after me.
right, right. If you had this thing that was ceaselessly tracking you, yeah, I mean, who knows what the future holds, what we're doing now. But that's why I keep on telling people, if you've not seen the film, it doesn't turn out well for us.
Right.
It's the Skynet. It's not that far away.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think sci-fi sometimes can be an offshoot. I think there's nooks and crannies within the horror universe that kind of, you find these meshes and melds, and is it straight horror? Is it straight thriller? Is it horror? Is it sci-fi? Is it horror, love story, sci-fi? Like, you can really,
Yeah.
yeah, and again, I think that's a tribute to what horror films have been and what they're becoming.
Yeah, because I'm thinking of Jordan Peele's latest film, Nope.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh
like
yeah.
that's a horror science
Sci-fi,
fiction
yeah, for sure.
western kind
Yeah.
of. It like got a lot of western in it.
Ton of Western. I mean, yeah. I mean, use that as an example. I mean, yeah, it's starting to evolve into really interesting play. I always look for, like, where's it gonna go next? Who's gonna
Yeah.
crack open that next evolution of it, which is always interesting, as a fan of. And also, what it tells us about ourselves.
And I love that horror. In my personal opinion, I think horror is a genre where you can look at different decades, and like 70s horror has the classics like The Exorcist,
Yeah.
and you mentioned Texas Chainsaw Massacre earlier. There's Jaws and Alien and Halloween and The Omen. I could, list all those great
Hmm.
masterpieces, and then the 80s just like that's where
Yeah.
horror really had a boom.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You found all sorts of horror, B horror, like
Yeah.
C horror that you couldn't get enough of. I mean, I would say I mean, it's hard to say, like, you can't, not that you can't watch a bad horror film, but in general, I watch horror films, like, you're gonna get something out of them more often than not at the attempt. Like, there's a lot of, stuff that I watched as a kid growing up, and, like, you go to the video stores at the time and you rent out this, that, or the other thing. Reanimator, I think one of them. Summer camp, I forget which camp that was. I think it was summer camp. But you rent out these horror films and, like, yeah, so maybe if the dialogue wasn't perfect, but the kills were off the
Yeah.
hook. The gore was off the hook. So you're gonna get some variable from each of them. You're gonna take away something that kind of stays with you, that becomes classic in that way. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you could go backwards and you could go forwards.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the future of horror because I think it's so well, it's hard to define what horror is now because there's so many
Mm.
different types of horror movies. Like you have your super gory mega slasher in Terrifier. You
Yeah.
have your
Oh yeah.
science fiction western in Nope.
Yeah. 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 And I mean, all of them are great. So it's just
Yeah.
there's enough room in the
That's what
universe, in the horror universe.
that's what excites me so much is and
Hmm.
I think it's fertile ground for storytellers to
Yeah.
tell any kind of story in any kind of
Oh yeah.
way.
Yeah, I think stuff gets. I mean, recently, there was Sting, and then it was Infested. These are creature features, you're right? So, like,
The spider
there's
movies.
yeah. I mean, they're still doing creature features. It's like, there's a wide berth.
I gotta tell you real quick, it's funny you bring that up because I just completed my latest short film and it's also a spider movie. So
Hmm.
I'm like, I must
Nothing
have
wrong with
tapped into something because
tapped
there's a
into
bunch of
something.
yeah, so that it both I don't want to say it bums me out, but I'm part of me is like, I guess I'm not as original as I thought.
Well, no, but it'll be
But
your
yeah.
spider movie, right? I mean, that's the
Right.
key, right? It'll be your spider movie, and that's the thing that makes it different. I think the year that I made American Fright Fest, there were two other Fright Fest films that came out exactly the same time. So it was
Really?
like, yeah, they were combined, they were shuttled together everywhere they went. They're getting reviewed as the Fright Fest films, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
oh man, could they have waited a year after? Yeah, but sometimes that's the universe, right? You just all land at the same time.
And I
That's how
think
things work.
and I think that means like we're tapped into something. If you're tapped into the same thing as other people, there's something good about that. Like I think of the year when like American Werewolf in London and The Howling,
Oh
and
yeah.
I think
Oh yeah.
Wolfen all came, or maybe it was Company of Wolves, but they all came out
At the
in the
same
same
time.
year. Yeah.
I just watched American Werewolf last night again. Still can't get over those effects. For back then,
Oh my
when he transitions
goodness.
into the werewolf or becomes a werewolf, it's amazing. It's amazing those
Oh yeah.
effects. I mean, they're practical and yet and going back and watching it, they show very little of the attacks. I mean, so little of the
Yeah.
attacks. It was blips. I mean, so little. You just saw the werewolf's face for a second, and then that was it. You didn't even see any. There was no real. It's interesting. It's interesting. They did. It's perspective. It's POV. Did very little of the attacks. So little.
Yeah.
I mean, you rarely saw it in its full form.
That's one of my
You know,
favorite
which
movies.
is interesting in a way as a technique. I mean, that's what I say. You go back
Oh
and
yeah.
watch, and it was. Oh yeah.
I gotta say, my favorite shot in that whole movie, I have two, and they're very. I like to think they're different. Maybe they're not because they both involve
Okay.
the wolf. But there's this great shot of the cameras at the top. It's when he's hunting the guy in the subway.
I was just,
Uh,
I
you know
honest to God,
exactly.
I thought, let's see what he says, but I was like, I'm 98% sure he's going to talk about the subway. You man that gets off the subway, looks down the
Yep.
tunnel and says, "Hey there, is there someone there? I don't find this funny. I'll report it to the police." That moment, yeah, 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 and then he starts to track him. Correct. So
Yeah.
go, what shot though?
It's when the camera's at the very top of the
Looking
escalators,
down, and we
looking
just
down.
start to see.
Yep. Yep.
That's one of those moments I was going to say. It's very rare that you got to see. So that's probably why the rings out. It's very rare that you got to see the beast, or we want to call it, and you just see it start to, and you don't need to see anymore,
And
right? Like that's it. That's all
yeah,
you need to see. It's
it
so
makes it so
scary.
scary. We said that at the same time too.
Yeah, it does. It really does.
And
Classic
it's like,
piece of horror filmmaking.
yeah. And it's such a funny film too. But it
Yeah, it is.
I think the fact that it's so funny makes the scary parts that much scarier.
100%. 100%. I couldn't agree more. There's a ridiculousness to it in its own nature. I mean, there is comedy in it,
Yeah.
inherent comedy in it. And yet, yeah, no, it just takes it to a different level. I mean, yeah, the opposite is just as true. It's kind of polarized that way. As
And
funny as it is, it's
yeah,
completely horrifying.
it's just one of those movies where it's like it's hard enough to make a horror movie and it's hard enough to make a comedy, but to do both,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
hard. So
yeah.
hard.
Couldn't agree more.
You could tell
Yeah, yeah.
I'm also a Scream fan and a Gremlins fan. I
I
got
like it.
those things
Oh,
hanging up.
Gremlins, one of my favorites. Sure.
Those are great horror
Oh yeah.
comedies.
Fantastic. You kidding me? Scream has its own, its own reality, its own world. I mean, obviously its own universe
Yeah.
from the time it was initiated. I mean, Gremlins for me. I always ask that quiz question. Does anyone know what famous director made a cameo in the original Gremlins?
Oh, I know the answer. I know the
You do
answer.
know the answer. Okay, great. Okay.
If people are listening, this is where you get to guess, but it's Steven Spielberg.
There you go. You know your stuff. Yes, it is. He's the man riding the sit down bike around I
Mhm.
think at the mall, the Christmas tree, was it? I think there's like a Christmas
No,
tree at the
it
mall.
was the science
The fountain,
convention.
the science convention. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. But he was
And
riding that cycle.
Jerry Goldsmith is also in the background in one of the
That's right.
shots. So
That's right. That's right.
I love Jerry Goldsmith. I could go on a
No.
whole tangent about that man's
Exactly.
scores. I think I said it at the beginning. Maybe I said it before we started recording. I knew it. We're gonna get along great.
Yeah, I mean, like I'll watch all horror, just get saturated with it. Know a bit too much about it at times. Might become annoying to other people, but whatever.
Well, not annoying to if it becomes annoying to anybody, it won't be me, the person who's hosting a horror movie podcast.
No, yeah, you'd be the last in that long line of folks.
Yep. And ideally, everyone who's listening, they won't be annoyed either. I'm assuming they're tuning in for a
I'm
reason.
sure. I'm sure. I'm sure. I'm sure they're fans.
Something I'm really interested in is we kind of covered your relationship to horror growing up and
Yeah.
a little bit like your transition from theater to filmmaking. What I would
Mhm.
like to know is do you remember the horror film that made you go, I want to work in horror?
It's a toss up. It's kind of an amalgamation for me. It's bizarre, but I kind of see it. I don't see them as one film. They're not one film. They're a grouping of films. Uh, that I was kind of not necessarily allowed to see. I don't think the supervision was a little bit different back then. It wasn't like they're like, leave them in front of. They'll be fine in front of the TV. Don't worry about it. Kind of thing. I got to see Damien. I got to see Omen. I got to see Candyman, the original. Obviously, lumping Texas Chainsaw Massacre into that group, and Poltergeist and Exorcist, right? So let's
Oh,
say those are like the group. Those are like the first initiations into, and then I've taken up residency in the back of my head. And at that point, maybe made me get to a place where I was like, always in the back of my mind, exploring what it would be like to have the opportunity to dive into that genre. Really look at it. And kind of explore it fundamentally. It's like a kid in the candy store type situation. It's like then you get your first shot at it, and it's like blood. There couldn't be enough blood. Like, let's get more
yeah,
blood, kind of thing, right? Because so, but I think I group it in, I'd lump it into an amalgamation of all those films. Kind of being rather than one specific. So I could tell
for
you
sure.
the one that had a tremendous impact on me was obviously Texas Chainsaw, only because it seemed, I mean, some of those Damien and let's say Poltergeist, Exorcist, The Omen, they seem like a spiritual realm, it lived in
Yeah,
that space, whereas a house in the middle of nowhere that no one can hear you screaming, where you have this, you have Leatherface running around with a chainsaw, kind of mutilating folks at will,
yeah,
slowly and painfully, seem like you would never find me in a small town. Like if I saw, such a place on the map, I'd be like, avoid it at all costs, because like
yeah,
obviously that, it's gonna happen, right? So that seemed very real to me. Like a very real situation, a situation that could happen. And for that, it's such a deep impact in the sense, like what would you do? Would you
yeah.
survive? It becomes that question, right? In a way.
Right.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's like, would you? Well, how would you get out of that situation? How would you get into that situation? I took it
exactly.
as like, yeah, I took it as like a PSA,
Yeah,
public service announcement in that regard, in the sense that, like, here's what you don't do, boys and girls. Don't let your car run out of gas in the middle of nowhere
right.
next to a big house, and don't ask the police for help in that town because they're probably related to someone with a chainsaw.
And definitely
You
don't
know,
go
it's
into the strange house.
Yeah, right. Don't go into the big creepy house, because it is exactly what it's advertised. It is exactly the thing. So that
Right.
felt very real to me. I guess at that age, I could not get that out of my head for the longest time. Every time I closed the door, I thought Leatherface was going to be there at night. I go
Mm.
sleep in my room and under the bed, and it was Leatherface. To grow up with that stuck, impression. So that was a big, big impact. But all the other films had just, I mean, Candyman as well, the original.
Yeah.
I mean, because that, and again, you weren't safe if you lived in an apartment, in that one, right? Because he existed
Well,
in an apartment complex, like in the basements, in the dark spaces,
right.
so like you still weren't safe. You could be in a big house in the middle of nowhere, you could be in a city with millions of people, and it's gonna follow you. So yeah, anything in the dark space that could exist, that had you kind of going, looking for a second longer, had my attention, and kind of
Yeah.
probably shaped and helped guide me towards wanting, or at least exploring, the realm of horror.
And I love that the films you mentioned, they're all so different. And I know
Yeah,
The Exorcist and The Omen, okay, they could be considered similar. I think they're very different films, but
sure, sure.
superficially I see the
Yeah.
similarities. They're both Catholic horrors that involves
Right.
priests. Like, yeah, I get it.
Yeah. 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 And like I throw
Yeah.
Poltergeist in there a little bit, like not necessarily as
Oh,
a
I love
specific religion,
Poltergeist.
but a spiritual realm, right? Like
Right.
you've broken the bonds to something spiritual, and Damien as well, like what's to come,
Mm-hmm.
this devil birth, this devil child, kind of thing. Like just the and that was scary in a different way. It's like
Yeah.
it was scary in the way of like what the mind could portray as how the mind works against itself. Did you or didn't you see that, or is there something bigger in the universe that is truly evil that could make these events happen or have control over people and that kind of thing? Completely different, as opposed to like a direct impact of a you
Right.
know a slasher or a Candyman type.
And that film particularly with like you have this big grand world-ending scenario, and a lot of the drama is Gregory Peck at the end of the movie being forced like, do I or do I not kill my own son? So
Yeah,
there's a
yeah,
very human, like
yeah,
human drama
yeah.
to it as well.
That's right. That's right. And very biblical in that way, you know, like, and that's again a tribute to horror in a sense. You could ask those questions, in these
Yeah.
horror films, and they resonate, the
Oh yeah.
choices. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, you picked a handful of like some of my favorites of all time. The Omen
Oh,
is
great.
one that I feel like I grew up with it. I saw it when I was probably like 11 or 12, but it's
Mm-hmm.
been with me for I mean, I grew up Catholic, so we love movies like The Omen.
Yeah, Exorcist, right, right,
Yep,
right.
yep.
Yeah, the
Um,
extreme nature, the extreme side of Catholicism, like what do you do if the devil said, well, you gotta get a priest to come in and do the whole exorcism, kind of
right.
thing. So that's yeah, yeah, yeah.
Candyman's one of my favorite
Oh yeah.
movies, and I actually saw that for the first time as an adult.
Oh right, the original
The original,
Goth.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I kind of grew up with it because it came out in 92, I think. Yeah.
Is that the year? That might have been the
I
year.
th
The original.
I'm
I
pretty
believe so.
sure I'm pretty sure it's
I don't know what year that
92,
was.
and I was
1992.
born in 94. So
Okay.
growing up on the playground, kids would, dare each other to say Candyman.
Oh, say it. All right. Oh, cool. Cool,
Right.
cool,
And we
cool.
thought it was real, And I
Yeah,
never
yeah, yeah.
said it. And now I know it's based off of a Clive Barker novella, and
Yeah, yeah.
now I know it
Yeah.
was never like a real thing, but I
Yeah.
still will never say Candyman 5 times in a mirror.
No,
I
no, you
just
can't.
won't do it.
No, no,
Why
not
take that
happening.
chance?
No, not happening, man. It's just not
Exactly.
happening. I'm not gonna tempt the fates. You understand?
Exactly. That that's the
You know?
easiest answer of if I would survive. Yes,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I
yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
won't say
You
it.
would say right. It's cautionary tale. I'm not gonna go there. I'm not one of those. Wait, you said not to say it. I'm cool with that. I'll just mosey along. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't need that in my life. I don't need that. I
Exactly.
wanna, I wanna watch the hook. I don't need it inside of me.
Exactly.
There's a
Exactly.
difference. Right,
Like
right, right,
I'm already a believer. I don't have to be convinced.
right. I don't have to be. I see what's been done. We get
Yep.
it. I get it. Yeah, yeah,
Same
yeah.
thing, same thing with The Ring. I'll survive.
Oh
I'm just
yeah.
not gonna
Oh
watch
yeah.
that tape.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Yeah, 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 yeah.
But I love that. I do want to make sure we talk about your brand new film, Bloodline Killer,
Yes.
which
100%.
congratulations.
Thank
That's
you. Thank you
awesome.
very much. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I
Thank you. Really.
For transparency for all the listeners, I have not seen the film yet. I've only seen the trailer, but guys, it looks so cool. I can't wait to
Thank you.
watch it. And you have a you have a great cast.
Yeah.
Like
Very
Sh
fortunate.
Shawnee Smith, where horror fans are listening to this, they love Shawnee Smith.
Yeah. Yeah. Huge fan. I'm a huge fan myself, first and foremost, before anything else. Getting the opportunity to work with her was really a big boon to us and the film itself. She is great all around. her work, her commitment as an actress. She brings it every day, all day. When we're in production, herself, Tyrese Gibson,
Yes.
amazing, tremendous in it. You know, great to work with, great to be on set with, great to collaborate with. Brought a lot of There was a lot of synergy there between him and Shawnee
Oh, that's
as a
awesome.
cast. Drew Morling, Malign, and James Scadioso, who play the two brothers, Mike and Connor. Montana Gillis is Lisa in it.
Yeah.
Taryn Manning,
Yes.
fantastic in it as well. Yeah, I mean across the board, Crash Novakovic in it as well. So we had a really solid cast, a really strong, good cast that came to play and worked really well together and brought it day in day out, which is a great thing to be a part of as a director when you get that opportunity. You have everyone committed and working, and everything's kind of flowing in the same direction. It's always a blessing.
That's incredible. Forgive me if I ask you the same questions you've been answering for however long you've been answering questions about this movie, but you never know who's listening for the first time, right?
Sure, sure.
So, I gotta ask, how did you become a part of this production?
So the Gaudioso twins, Anthony Gaudioso and James Gaudioso, who are brothers, obviously, they wrote the script. They've been working on it years prior. Approached myself and the main producer on the film, Rob Simmons, to join forces, come on board, and they asked if I wanted to direct. I read the script. I saw the nucleus of the family in it, and the idea of the peripheral, the slasher on the outskirts, lurking. And I was immediately attracted to it. Who wouldn't be? The opportunity to jump into that world and create it in a suburban environment, create a lurking fear, a paranoia. There's a lot to deal with in that world, and I dove into it 100%.
That's awesome. I gotta ask because we were talking about like the overall films that inspired your overall journey as a storyteller and filmmaker. Were there any horror films you kind of looked towards directly as inspiration for this film?
It's funny, man. I didn't really look at anything specific for it. In fact, I tried not to watch anything at all.
Yeah.
In a weird way, I couldn't say that I drew on anything specific. So I was kind of immersed in trying to create this world for what it was and try to give it the reality it needed, especially in the relationships. The familial relationships for me was like a little bit of a Rubik's cube and getting that right. Can't say I didn't. I watched anything. I kind of, beats and moments from a lot of the films that we talk about and other films at that matter.
Yeah.
I could recall like a certain moment. Oh, it'd be something in that vein or something in that color or something in that trajectory. So there would be films that would come in and go out kind of thing
Yeah.
as process went on for this beat or for that beat or that moment, something like this, something like that. And that's it's kind of how I approached it. I didn't, I do watch certain types of films for different types of projects. This one didn't really have that, didn't approach it that way. I don't know how else to explain it. Kind of felt like
Yeah.
I could maneuver in the world and understand the elements and, try and create something from the ground up organically.
I love that because like I said, I'm still learning in my journey, and I love how like your process can change from film to film.
Oh yeah. I mean, yes, absolutely. Everyone is its own, undertaking, its own set of rules, its own color, its own everything. Because the world around it's not set yet. So you can approach it completely differently, so to speak. You don't have to confine yourself to like this. I got to do it exactly like this. There should
Yeah.
be some format. You should have some discipline in it. But I think you can approach it or find your way into it as a director in different ways, whether it's through a piece of music, storyboards, through working with talent, starting to understand that world and doing your own research and understanding how you're going to bring it to life, what's going to matter most, the beats that matter, and all that. But I don't think you have to lock in. I think because also too, there's also being on set and then dealing with everything that happens on a given day,
Yeah.
and being able to adjust to that, Oh, we lost that location. Guess what? You're not shooting. So it's like now you got to deal with, a scene not taking place in the location you may have wanted. Or now you got 45 minutes to shoot that one scene you want, so there's always
Right.
the ability to kind of like maneuver. And I think it's really important.
I love how like filmmaking is really just problem
Mm.
solving and teamwork. I love
You,
that aspect
you,
of
you said
filmmaking
it.
so much.
You said it. I say this all the time. I say if become a problem solver, be open to the next problem being right around the corner.
Yes.
Like just don't ever feel. And it's not. It's an instant space to live in because you're like doesn't have to make you a nervous person. I think it calms you down in the sense if you know problems are going to happen and you don't have to the world won't fall apart. You're nimble enough and you have a bit of imagination and creativity, you'll manifest something that you weren't even thinking of.
Yeah.
There's always an opportunity in it, right? So it's just like, here's the problem. It's presented itself. Okay, let me switch my mind over into not repeating the problem. Okay, I know this is the problem. Stop getting into that kind of line of thinking where it's like just repeating the problem. Now it's into the problem solving part. Like become that person where you approach and you go, okay, what are the solutions? Let's look at them. And you'll come up with something. Sometimes it gives you stuff that you weren't even, putting together in your own head ahead of time. And so a lot of times there are opportunities, it depends. But yeah, it is totally problem solved. Good portion
Yeah.
of it's problem solved. Being nimble enough to make a decision when you need
Oh
to.
yeah. Me personally, I'm at the point where I'm just writing and then directing my own stuff.
Hmm.
And just kind of making those shorts happen. And what I find I love is when you're on set and like your lead or your DP or maybe, the gaffer or whoever, they just have a great idea.
Hmm.
And you saw it in one way and you're like, actually, I like that more. Let's go with
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it happens continuously. It happens continuously, and you build trust when you work with specific teams and you're around them long enough. It's
Hmm.
very much a shorthand.
Yeah.
And there's that kind of trust where they're able to come to you and say, "Hey, I know you're doing it. Just you want to take a look at something." You know what I'm saying? And that kind of thing evolves, and you go, "Oh, great, yeah, gonna work." There's something really beautiful about working with the team, and the interest is always in doing what's best for the overall project. It's not much about
Yeah.
the ego. It's a lot more about making this thing fire on all cylinders at every moment you can, with the opportunity given.
I think you said it perfectly. There's not much I can add there. Bring it back to Bloodline Killer. I got so excited about talking about it. I don't think people listening, they're probably thinking, okay, cool. What's it about?
Yeah,
I,
yeah,
I'm not doing my job. So now I'm going to,
right.
be a good podcast host. What is
Sure.
Bloodline Killer about for people listening and they're hearing about this for the first time?
Okay, so it's about Moira Cole, who's the matriarch of this family. She now lives with their two sons in a suburban setting after having suffered the loss of family members at the hands of a deranged cousin who is now escaped. So the story kind of goes from there. Her storyline has been transitioned into because the the initial heinous crimes that were committed early on in her life. She was a younger woman back then, a teenager, I'd say, and her story rights went on to become a film, a franchise that yearly as films get shown, horror films,
Hmm.
comes up on the TV. They do marathons, they do horror marathons, and this is one of the films that's in the cycle of playing. So she kind of can't escape her past. She has to kind of navigate how to survive the present with lurking danger. in
That's
in the immediate.
that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
The movie sounds so cool. Like I said, I've seen the trailer, so I know it looks
Cool.
cool. I'm gonna have the poster on like the Instagram posts and stuff like that, and I'll
Yeah.
share the poster as well.
Please.
Um, so if you're listening, check the Insta and stuff. Look at this because the poster is really cool. That
Oh,
mask.
thanks, man. Thank you. Oh, that mess. Let me tell you, we love it. We love it in every way possible. Yeah,
That.
it was created by Howard Berger. Uh,
Oh,
yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
awesome.
Howard's a straight genius. I work with him on. I got him some sketches and some, insight into why the mess exists, how it exists. There's a backstory to it. So he ran with it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We're very happy with that. We love it very much.
So what is it like to work with someone like, I mean, obviously Howard Berger's a genius and that mask looks so cool, but like I feel like at some point you gotta like pinch yourself, you know what I mean? It's
Of
like
course, of course, of course. I mean, I've had the great opportunity of knowing Howard over the years. I've been on film sets with him. Maybe I'm aging myself a little bit, but I worked on Dust Till Dawn a long time ago. And that's when I first got to know Howard and his work. I spent time at KMB Studios, the FX Studios. I got molded for one of the exploding vampires back then.
oh
Um, yeah, yeah. So I had the great opportunity again to know Howard over the years and reacclimating and re-meeting and on different projects, and he's just amazing artist, talent, and human being on every level. The guy is a rare breed in the industry.
that's awesome. I gotta say, I love From Dusk Till Dawn. That
Right,
movie is insane. It's incredible. I mean, I gotta say, I'm a Mexican American
oh,
filmmaker.
cool.
Uh, we love Robert Rodriguez. That
What's
dude,
not to
the
love?
inspiration, you know?
What's not to love about that? I mean, he brought the vampire mariachi band uh
Yeah.
into exam. I know I that set. I mean, I mean, I laughed continuously. I was on set, I mean, for the whole film pretty much. And I mean, there's just moments in it that are priceless, just the way,
Yeah.
he used that's one where like the comedy becomes a factor in a way, I mean, Cheech
Mhm.
Marin, the front of the establishment, let's call it
Yep.
that.
Oh,
And how
oh,
it
if
became a mind. Yeah. What's
oh,
that?
I
I'm
was just gonna
sorry.
say, if we could talk about decapitations and severed limbs and all the guts and
Oh
gore,
yeah.
we could say titty twister.
Well, okay, jump in. And the fact that there's the front of that, and at the end we see it's a Mayan temple, right? Or I
Yeah.
think that's right. I mean, it's just it's just there's layers to it. I mean, it was I remember reading that script for the first time, going, wait a second, like because it makes that leap, at a certain point, and it's good. You think it's a crime thriller, a hostage story. These guys are, the Gecko brothers getting away with what they're getting away with and taking this family over, and then it turns into a vampire film. And it's just like,
Yeah.
it's not really like buffered. It just goes from here into that, and I was always like, wow. Like, it's a hard right, they took a hard right, but
I
interesting as can be.
love
Yeah.
I love movies that just completely change up genres
Bless. Right.
halfway
Yeah.
through. Like I'm think
Yeah.
like Predator is one of the great examples where it starts
Sure.
off as the 19 like that stereotypical big muscle 1980s
Yeah.
action commando type flick.
Rambo. Right. Right. Right.
Yeah. And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden it turns
Get hunted.
into
Yeah.
it's essentially a slasher movie.
To the point where he takes their spines out as trophies.
Yeah,
It's really
it's
interesting.
so cool. I love Predator.
I mean,
While we're geeking out about all the fun blood and gore of movies like From Dusk Till Dawn and Predator, I don't want you to spoil anything, but what can the gore hounds and the bloodthirsty
uh,
among us expect from the
you
Bloodline
know,
Killer?
I'll use it right. There will be blood. I'll just use
Yeah.
that as my. There will be blood. I'll leave it at that. There will be blood. I mean, yeah, you can't have a poster with a friend in the mess with an axe on it and that fulfills some bloodlust. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, you kind of you have an intuition where this is heading. To a,
I
there is
love
an
it.
intuition as to where it's going. Yeah.
What I'm really excited about is it's part of what I think is like this great slasher renaissance.
Oh
And
yeah.
that's happening right now. And we still got Michael Myers and Ghostface around. There was a Chucky movie not that long ago, a new Texas
Hmm.
Chainsaw on Netflix 2 years
Right.
ago. But like we have new slashers,
Yeah, man. Yeah,
and you made one. You made
Yeah,
a
I
whole
know.
new
It's
character.
it's a thing, man. It's a thing. It's just like, yeah, creating a character that can go on, and this lends itself to that. It lends itself to lineage. You can either go to prequel territory, obviously to sequel territory, to franchise territory. There's quite a bit to explore in this world yet. This was the initial, I think, seedling environment for this world to grow and explore the character. I think there's more to come for sure, and you'd want that. You'd want to be able to tell the story on a grander scale and have more room to tell it and more time to tell it too. So we'll see. But yeah, I mean, look, as a fan of slashers, it's a responsibility in a way because it's like what's come before, and you gotta it's not an easy climb. I'll say that. To kind of
Oh
get
yeah.
a little traction going. Yeah.
And I feel like with slasher fans, like they've seen it all. If
Yes.
so, I imagine there's pressure there. Like, how am I going to give this passionate fan base what they crave and not bore? Like, I imagine there is a lot of that pressure. But I'm so excited to see this film. I know
Right.
you knocked it out of the park, and I'm excited for everyone to see it as well.
Yeah, 100%. I'm very excited for everyone to see it. I'm excited for people to take the journey with the Cole family to see where things go as they go and to meet our bloodline killer.
Yes. Yes, I wish all the success for the film. I wish for it to gain that franchise potential so we can see more.
Yeah.
And I'm just excited because I love having original like more horror icon. Don't get me wrong, I'll always watch anything with Michael
Sure.
Myers and
Of
Freddy
course.
Krueger.
Same
Um,
here.
but I want more. I want more. I'm selfish.
Yeah. I mean, listen. That's what the horror universe does, right? It
Yes.
has room to expand. There is room. There is room in it. Just got to keep on building it, right? It's that old theory, build it, they will come kind of thing, field of dreams. Same thing
Yes.
applies, yeah? Like, we're building it, building it. And this is hopefully first in many.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. Where can people watch it?
People can watch it on Apple TV, they can watch it on Google Play, they can watch it on Amazon right now, YouTube, all the regular usual suspects when it comes to streaming. So yeah, I think one of the biggest places obviously is Amazon and Apple, but
Yeah.
Google Play as well and YouTube. They can rent it, they can buy it and enjoy it.
Will there be a physical release of the film?
You mean as far as like a DVD or something of that
Yeah.
nature? I'm not 100% sure. There may be some DVDs made, possibly.
Gotcha.
I am not 1,000% on that as of yet. I don't think we've gotten the final notice on that if there will be any physical format of the film made. I don't know as of yet. That's a good question that needs to be asked. And if there is anything, I'll update.
I know everyone streams nowadays, but
You collect. You
us
collect. I
horror
get it.
fans, we're
I
a
know.
stubborn
I
lot.
know.
We like
I know.
collecting.
I
Myself,
know, man.
myself for sure, but like
I
I,
know.
there's something about horror fans and collect. I think it's because we're all nerds.
Yeah, have it in the library. It's like when I was a kid growing up, it
Yes.
was comics, man. I used to keep them in plastic sleeves so that they couldn't get touched by the outside world, and put them in boxes and had them organized by title, by genre, blah 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 blah. And there is something to cataloging and having everything in its proper place, and you can reach out and touch it at any time. You don't have to wait
Yeah.
for it to come out on. You know what I'm saying? You get into that
Right.
mood. Guess what? I mean, I've had experiences like that. God, I wish I had it right here. I wanted to really watch it. Like
Right.
that moment, right? There's a moment that comes in your brain. You think of a film. You don't know why you're thinking of it. And
Yeah.
you do, and you're like, God, it'd be great if I could just, you're like, oh, then you look through all the servers, and it's like, oh, they're not carrying it. Or you find it, sense like, ah, kind of thing. It'd be great if you had it right there. You just pop it on, give it a real quick watch. So I get it. I totally get it. I totally get it. I don't want any of that stuff to go away. I want
Right.
Blockbuster to come back. No, I'm joking. I think we're past that, but
But it would be nice if like Best Buy could not, stop selling
I
Blu-rays and
know.
DVDs.
I heard
I
that.
used to
Yeah.
give them so much money, and now
Yeah.
I'm like,
That's it.
now I'm
We're
like,
not friends anymore. Yeah.
exactly. My Best Buy credit
Yeah.
card is almost paid off because I'm not using it.
Right. Because that's right. That's right. That's right. I mean, that's how this stuff goes, though. I mean, yeah, I heard that. I heard that announcement. They're like phasing it out now, which is kind of interesting. We've reached the realm of like all things exist electronically, and I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. To be honest with you, I just don't
I
know. I know things change
Yeah.
technologically speaking, but somebody else. I mean, look, records still have a value, right? People are still
Oh
buying
yeah.
vinyl because they want to listen to. They buy their record players and they listen to records, which is a good thing. So I don't know. It might become a smaller, more niche situation,
I
but
think it's going to be niche, but I don't
yeah,
think
yeah,
it'll
yeah.
ever go away. I think
Sure.
there's too many collectors.
It keeps it thriving too. It's just you're right
Yeah.
though. The physical thing, having it there is something to it. Yeah, very much so. It's like having a poster, right? Same thing for me, kind of in
Right.
a way.
And like you could
Yeah,
see like my Jaws poster, like
yeah, yeah.
I got some
I think
Star
that's
Wars pieces
sure,
behind me. So
sure, sure.
I'll
Seeing it.
you got
Wow.
Jurassic
All
Park
right,
right there.
there it is. Someone brought that up the other day. They're like, "That's one of the scariest movies, Jurassic Park." I
That's my
agree with
favorite
them.
movie of all time.
Yeah. Okay. I
I
get it. I get it.
It takes all my willpower for me not to just talk about Jurassic Park every week on the show.
Yeah.
And I always find a way to
Listen,
bring it up somehow.
and there we did. We got it. We
We did
got it. We
it.
fulfilled it. We
Life
did it.
finds a way.
Yeah, we did
But
it. Oh, that's
yeah,
so cool.
I'm so excited for your film. I
Thank you.
It's out right now, guys. If you're listening to it, rent it, buy it, however, whatever you're able to do, but definitely check it out because this is how we get more when more horror icons are and villains are made, we got to watch those movies or else we don't get more of
Yeah,
them.
100%. 100%. You create them and they evolve. They go to phase two.
Yes.
Phase three, phase four. They continue on, and the world gets explored. You can go in deeper. You can look at stuff and really dive into moments and beats. So there's a whole, and this in particular, there's an evolution to all this. Yeah.
Yes.
So, and it's in there. It's all in there. But there's more to explore. Let's put it that way.
Right. And like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think the best example is everyone's favorite Mama's Boy and Jason Voorhees. Like Jason didn't become Jason
Yeah.
overnight. He's
No,
he's barely in the first movie.
he's not even in the first movie. I think he
Just
comes,
a
jumps up. He
dream,
does it.
right?
He's the old jump up at the end, grab her
Yeah.
off the boat deal. Like he was inserted in an afterthought. Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, I got a lot of people about that. They're like the first. Yeah, Jason Voorhees. I was like, he didn't kill Jack in the first one. It was the mom. It was the
Right.
it was all her. And it was great because she thought she was at some event and she was like, I figured I'd do the movie. I need a new car. They're paying her enough for that, and her configuration on that was no one's gonna see this film anyway, kind of thing, which is great. Which is great. Turns into this massive franchise, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny. Horror has a way of doing that. You just, your audience is your fan base. And the horror
Yes.
community is one of the great communities when it comes to genres and fans. Period. Bar none.
I wholeheartedly agree. But yes, this has been such a fun conversation. I could go on and on and on and on, but I know, I'm sure you got a lot more to do, busy working filmmaker, which congratulations, because I know how hard
Thank you.
that is. And
Thank you.
congratulations on Bloodline Killer. Um,
Thank you.
it's truly like I know you've done a couple films, but every single one's such an accomplishment. So
For sure. For sure. No joke. I always say when a film gets done, an angel gets their wings. That's my
yes.
somewhere, somehow.
Yes, and I'm excited for the future of not just your career but of the character as well.
Thank
So,
you. Thank you very much, Austin. What an absolute pleasure being able to talk to you.
This has been, like I said, I love this. It was a blast. Before I let you go, where can everyone find you on the internet and if you want to be found?
I am on. I do have my Instagram. There you go. That's the mission. I do have an Instagram account, Ante Novakovic 4. My first and last name and the number 4 on Instagram. That's my handle. You can find me there. Yeah, mainly there. That's the big. I think everyone finds everyone on Instagram nowadays anyway. So, yeah, you can
Yeah,
find me at that Ante Novakovic 4.
awesome. And I will put a link to that in the show description as well as links
Okay.
to Amazon and Apple so everyone listening
Right.
can watch or rent, at least check out the trailer.
Very, very cool. Very cool. And thank you greatly for that. Yes.
Oh, no problem at all. This has been such a great conversation. Thank you so much.
I had a blast.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Thank you, Ante, for joining me and for having this wonderful conversation about horror and filmmaking with me. Guys, don't forget to check out Bloodline Killer, available now on VOD. The Patreon is back. That's right, if you really want to support this podcast, you can help me directly by subscribing to the Patreon. I retooled it so it's only $3 a month, and you'll get exclusive content, movie reviews, and more. If you haven't already, subscribe to the Would You Die YouTube channel. You can watch video versions of the podcast episodes, my short film Ice Scream, and more to come. If you like this show, please let me know. Leave a review and rate on Spotify or Apple or wherever you listen to this show. Also, feel free to interact with me on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, wherever you're most comfortable. It may not seem like a lot, but trust me, every single like, share, comment, follow helps this podcast to grow and helps keep me going. And feel free to let me know how I'm doing. What do you guys like about the show? Areas I can improve? Guests you'd like me to have on? Monsters you want me to talk about? Let me know what you guys think. A reminder, I just became an affiliate for Fangoria, one of the premier brands in horror. I definitely recommend checking out their magazine and even subscribing. And if you decide to do that, don't forget to use the promo code WoodYouDieShow for 20% off your entire order. You can find the show's social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Would You Die Show. Also now you can follow me on TikTok at Would You Die Podcast. Would You Die is a partner with the Three Wise Men Media, a Metro Detroit-based group of awesome guys, Kyle, Tyler, and Dylan, where they bring you professional wrestling, indie comic books, and so much more. The music you hear in the beginning and end of each episode is composed by my friend Josie Palmer. Next week, we're talking about angels. Well, some of you might think they're demons. Until next time, I'm Austin Torres. Try not to die.